Hi, welcome! I'm Mary and I hook books. I crochet projects inspired by the audiobooks I listen to. And this is going to be my March 2023 wrap up. I read 21 books this month, so I'm going to talk mostly about ones that I haven't talked about in a different video, and then we'll do a speed round at the end. The last book that I read this month was the 8th book in the Dresden Files, and the Dresden Files are never going to be amazing, but they're getting better and better, so I'm really glad that I kept going with the series. The 7th was my favorite so far, but Proven Guilty, the 8th book, was also really good. I gave it 3.5. And I made another skull. I tried making a couple different skull projects and none of them really worked out. So this is another I Love You to Death heart inspired by Bob the Skull, who's a wonderful, funny character in the Dresden Files. I also listened to a short Great Courses lecture series by C. Nathan Wall called The Scientific Secrets for Self-Control. And I knew a lot of this already. There were a couple things that were new, but I've always been a psychology geek. I've just loved studying how the human mind works forever. So someone that's not as well versed, this could be a really cool book or a really cool lecture series. So I personally only gave it a 3.0, but this could definitely be someone's 4 or 5 star. And I listened to The Secret History of Wonder Woman by Jill Lepore, and this was so well researched. I knew about Marsters and his polyamorous lifestyle and his unique family. I did not know that he invented the lie detector test, and I also didn't know the socio-political background that Wonder Woman came about in the context of. And Wonder Woman came about when America was in turmoil about voting rights and women's reproductive rights and gun control and book bans. And I'm so glad that our country has come so far. But this book was just so well researched in all of the different areas that made Wonder Woman not just Marster's personal history. And I wish she'd gone more into what happened after Marster's death and the evolution of Wonder Woman, but it was already kind of a long book, so I understand why she didn't. But this was probably my favorite nonfiction of the month, and I gave it a 4.5. I also managed to sneak in Space 1969 by Bill Oakley, and this is a fun alternative history, retrofuturism, all-star cast, what if kind of a book. I really enjoyed it. The voice acting is amazing. The ending wasn't a really ending, so I don't know if there's any plans for a part 2, and if there's not, I'm gonna be really annoyed. But I gave it overall a 3.75. It would have been higher if I'd liked the ending more. And space, stars, shooting star, little app leak. I also read TJ Klune's The House on the Cerulean Sea, and this was sold to me incorrectly, so I had low expectations. I thought this was a middle grade, and I definitely would recommend this to children, adolescents, adults, anybody. It was just such a wonderful feel-good book for me. It just warmed my heart so much. I was also told that there was basically baby Cthulhu, which I guess I get if I squint and turn my head sideways, but that's why I made baby Cthulhu. And this book, like I said, I would recommend to anybody that just needs to feel happy for a while. It was wonderful. I loved it. 5 stars. I also read The Children's Secret by Nina Monroe, and I originally thought that this was really good writing because it made me not like the person whose viewpoint I would normally really agree with. And I was like, oh, kind of made me see the viewpoints of different characters. But I don't know if it was actually just pro gun propaganda. I don't know. And the cast was diverse. It wasn't so much about gun violence as it was about this community. But there were so many characters that about the last 15% of the book was just, where are they now for every single character? So it kind of dragged in the end. The mystery was, like, they say no one can keep secrets like a child, but I don't know any child that can actually keep a secret really well. So I gave it a 2.75. It wasn't terrible. But I made a cake based on the cake that she makes. She found a recipe online for a rainbow cake in chapter 1 that she makes for her son's party before everything went wrong, which is why it has black icing on there. I also listened to The Secret History of Food, Strange but True Stories of the Origins of Everything We Eat by Matt Siegel, and I gave this 4.25. I really hope that he writes more books in the future. He's normally more of a journalist, which is why this was so well researched on the foods that it did talk about. I also read Winner Cake All, a chef-to-go mystery. It's the third and final one in the series by Denise Swanson, and I gave that 4.25. It's a very sweet and wholesome romance series that I would definitely recommend to anybody that wants something wholesome and not spicy in their romance. And again, for that, I made a little cake, and this one is a cookies and cream cake. I read the Innkeeper Chronicles #1, which is called Clean Sweep by Ilona Andrews, and this is fun. In fact, I already have the second one from the library, so I'm going to finish that in April, and inspired by her hood that she wears, I made this hood that I will not put on because it will mess up my hair, but if you want to see how gorgeous it is, you can go to my previous video where I did my March check-in and modeled that. I also read Manhunt by Gretchen Felker-Martin, and that was a cool apocalypse. If you are an action-driven reader, I would definitely recommend it. I gave Clean Sweep and Manhunt both 3.75. And inspired by that cover, I made this reusable market bag, or I'm using it as my yarn ball sack. A really good Great Courses lecture series that I read this month was The Secret Life of Words, English Words and Their Origins by Anne Curzon. And this was really good. I didn't get something new out of every chapter, but it really did help shift my perspective. Like, I can't be a purist about pronouns and pronunciation because language really does change so much. So I gave that one a 4.25 and would definitely recommend it. And I also read The Husbands by Chandler Baker, and 2.5. Just don't bother. And I was struggling to find a pattern inspired by the fire on the cover, so I just ended up freehanding this hat. Again, I'm not going to model it, but you can see me model it in my mid-month check-in. I also read A Symphony of Echoes, which is the second book in the Chronicles of St. Mary's, and I love that series. It's fun characters, it's high action, there's a lot of comedy, and I gave that one a 4.75. And I made this square that I may or may not end up putting in a bigger project based on A Symphony of Echoes, symphony music notes. And I read This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay, and that I gave 5 stars to. That was fantastic. And I made a little first aid kit carrier inspired by that. Inspired by The Sister Wife's Secret by Anya Mora, I made a heart garland, and that one I gave a 3.25. I probably won't read any of the follow-ups. I'm a little curious based on the ending, but I have such a big TBR anyway that I just don't see it happening. And then one of the first books that I read this month was Cultish, The Language of Fanaticism by Amanda Montell, and I gave that one a 4.25. And I really did appreciate that she went into cults, but also non-traditional cults. Things like fitness classes and online influencers. I participated in the Trans Rights Readathon, and instead of doing individual projects for each book, I did one big project for the whole readathon, and I didn't quite get it done by the end of the month, but I have about a half of one of these strips left to make, and then I will connect them and move on to the next project. I'm going to donate probably 2 or 3 Afghans to them in the next month or so, and their residents get first choice, but if they don't get chosen for personal use, they're going to auction them off to raise money for the Hope Center. And if you'd like to donate to the Hope Center, I will have their information in the description box down below. If you'd like to donate to me and buy me yarn so that I can make more of these beautiful Afghans, then I will also have my Buy Me a Coffee in the description box down below as well. For the Trans Rights Readathon, I read An Unkindness of Ghosts, which I gave 3 stars to, but I imagine most people this will be higher rated for them. I read Fina, and Interdimensional IKEA is just kind of a fun adventure, so I gave that one 3.5. I read Everyone on the Moon is Essential Personnel, and that short story collection really packed many jabs as opposed to one big punch, and that I gave 3.5 as well. I read In the Watchful City, and that one I gave 3.75. Very contemplative, very cool, lots of different sci-fi and fantasy tropes in there. And my favorite for that readathon was Dreadnought, and I love a superhero origin story, I just do. And this was so well done. I loved the character work, so 4.5. So that is my March 2023 reading and crochet wrap-up. All the patterns will be in the description box down below. I also made a couple little prizes for my class for the games that we play as a reward for listening to the lectures. So I will also have those in the description box down below. I should have some footage of the full transgender pride flag blanket that I've been making. And I hope that you have an amazing April. Let me know what you read, if you made any cool projects in the month of March. And as always, my Buy Me a Coffee and Storygraph links will be in the description box. And if you'd like to donate to the Dallas Hope Center or the Dallas Hope Charities, I'll have their information down below as well. So, happy springtime! Have a great month. Remember to just relax, breathe, and keep your head up. This is the progress that I made on this blanket in March, and I hope that it is just the right size for someone to be able to get a metaphorical, loving hug out of it.